These fixed odd betting terminals, they're just further proof that our government does not care about the people of this country. It doesn't care about misery for thousands as long as the money's coming in. After years of people lobbying about these betting terminals and the evil they are and the harm they were doing, after years of lobbying and years of people's lives being ruined, the government eventually conceded to this fact and lowered the maximum amount you could lose from £100 every 25 seconds to £2 at a time, something that would make a massive, massive difference. But also, in doing so, in my eyes, it's proof that these machines were wrong to start with. Now, although they lowered the rate to £2, they didn't put it into force until November 2019, which was 18 months after they lowered it. So they were willing to allow 18 months more of grief and pain and anguish and harm before they'd force the bookies to change their ways. Now, I know they've put it back now to April 19th, but it doesn't escape the fact that they basically put money before people's well-being. Simple as. Now, and this is with all the evidence they have of the harm it causes. Harm it causes to gamblers, to people who are addicted to it, to their families, and in the really extreme cases, the suicides it has caused. These machines have caused a suicide a day for the last number of years, 5, 6, 7 years. It's indisputable. The suicides are attributed to gambling, but I can guarantee you 80+% of them will be to do with these betting terminals, as you will find out why as the videos go on. Now, when they agreed to put the maximum limit down to £2, the bookies, they didn't have bleats. Now, they threatened that there would be thousands of jobs lost because of this change. But it's the same threat that all big businesses issue whenever the government wants to implement things that are going to affect their profits and dividends. I can guarantee you the job losses wouldn't have involved any of the top jobs. And I dispute the number of jobs anyway. These machines are already in the shops. All it takes is for one employee to switch the machine on in the morning, switch it off at night, and take all our bloody money out of it and put it in the safe. How do they need to employ 2,000 people just to do that? It's just a veiled threat. That's what it is. The same threat that all big businesses use because they think it's the one that will hurt the government and scare the government the most. And it's probably what has scared the government into allowing this higher limit, £100 limit, to carry on for months and months and months, causing more grief and harm. Now, I know that these machines have destroyed thousands of lives because I was one of these people. I was addicted to the machines. And before I tell you my story, I just want to say a short thing about addictions. I'm going to make a video at some stage about addictions, but just for the sake of this video, let me just explain about addictions. Just to ward off the people who I know are going to say, oh, well, it's your own fault. If you're stupid enough to play the machines, it's your own fault. You shouldn't be that stupid. Just to ward them people off, let me tell you a bit about addictions. Everybody has got an addictive part of the brain. Everybody has got an addictive gene in the brain. The trouble is, some of these genes are much easier to trigger and harder in others. So there are people who are quite happy to live their life on an even keel. So they're quite happy to go along life on an even keel and get their enjoyment and their upsets and the disappointments along the way without having to go too high and too low. But there's people, and these are people who've got a very strong addictiveness, and they can only function on highs and lows, okay? They need to reach great highs, and they need to experience very severe lows. Only by experiencing the very severe lows can they accept and appreciate and enjoy the highs. Well, they're people with an addictive nature, and I'm one of them, okay? So another thing about addiction is there's what I call the first fix syndrome, okay? Now, if you think of an alcoholic, An alcoholic will walk into a pub determined just to have 1 pint, but as soon as that alcohol passes his lips, it sends a message to his brain which triggers his addictive gene. It changes him as a person, despite what promises he's made to himself or his family prior to that. Once the addictive gene is triggered in his head, he can't stop at one drink. He has to have another and another and another. The same thing goes for drug addicts, and the same thing goes for people who are addicted to these machines. Okay? Now, we've all got an addictive gene. People will say, oh, no, we haven't. Well, we have. You look at how many people now are addicted to the mobile phones, women especially. Millions all over the world. They can't leave the phone down for 3 seconds. That's an addiction. It's proof that there is an ability to be addictive in everybody. But in people who've been addicted to these betting terminal machines, it's just that their addiction is far easier triggered. Okay? So let's get on to my story. And my story is this. I've always gambled. I've always had a bet on the horses ever since the age of 18, 19. It was never an issue to me. I could take it or leave it. I might have a couple of bets 1 week. I might not have another bet for 3 or 4 weeks. That's the way I've been for the last 20 years. Okay? And recently, when the machines came into these shops, the betting shops, I used to laugh at people playing the machines. I used to say to them, how can you play a machine? You can't beat a machine. I used to laugh, physically laugh at these people. But what happened was, it was a Saturday afternoon in a very busy William Hill store, the busiest time of the week. And I was in there just having my normal couple of bets on the horses, and a workman walked into the store, into the betting shop. He was wearing his high-vis, his boots, his dirty pants, the lot. He made a big show of putting £40 on one of these betting terminals, and he was playing roulette, and he only played 5 out of 37 numbers. And after so many spins, he had turned a £40 bet into £3,000 plus profit. And he walked out of that store after about half an hour, less even, having won £3,000. Now, to my detriment, obviously, I thought I was going to be rich, along with half the other people in that shop that day. We thought we'd found the way to richness. But all we had found was that we had been duped by an obvious plant, sent there with all the information he needed by the bookies in order to trap idiots like me. And trap me he did. So from never touching a machine, I began to bet small on the machine. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the game of roulette. It's the only game I played. And I won. I won quite big at first. I was regularly turning 20, £30 bets into £200, £300 over the course of the first few weeks. I thought I had it made. But I didn't have it made. I was being made because I was caught out by a trick that nearly every fixable betting medium uses. Let him win big first, because it's the big wins that create the addiction. Nobody's going to get addicted by having 20 bets and losing every one. But you let somebody win initially, a lot of money initially, it's that winning that makes them addictive. It doesn't matter how many times they lose afterwards, they felt the buzz of the win, and they will always believe they can win again. That's what creates the addiction. That's what these machines do. I'll tell you something else that does it. Scratch cards. When the National Lottery bring a new scratch card out, they load all the winnings onto the first batch. The number of times I have bought from the first batch of a new scratch card and won repeatedly, again and again, every 3 or 4 cards there's a win. It hooks you. You think you're always going to win on this medium. Yeah. The next 5 or 6 batches that follow, you win nothing, but it doesn't stop you from trying because you've had the taste of the win. This is how these immoral betting forms work. It's the same with online gambling. I've never done that, but I know it's the same. So I started betting small and I was winning. And then as the wins got bigger, I started to bet bigger and bigger and bigger until basically I was addicted to this machine. Okay? Now, after not so very long, not even a month and a half, the wins started to lessen and then they stopped altogether. It didn't stop me because the addiction had set in. And when the addiction sets in, the hardest part of gambling is chasing your losses. You cannot help yourself but do it. Yeah? Then it becomes a duel. It becomes a duel between you and that machine. And all your judgment goes out the window. No matter how intelligent you are, when the addiction kicks in, yeah, your judgment goes out the window. It becomes a duel, and then the dangerous part is this: you stop realizing that you're playing with money. You stop realizing that it's actually cash you are shoveling into this machine. And to you, it's just a game, it's a fight, it's a duel, it's numbers. You want your numbers to be better than the machine's numbers. You want to prove that you know the right numbers. Honestly, the number of times I've stood there and shoveled hundreds and hundreds of pounds into these machines and did not realize till I walked out of that shop that I'd actually lost money. It's crazy, okay? And you understand to understand how an intelligent person gets hooked. Let's refer back to the first fix syndrome. Every day I walked into that bookies, I promised myself I'll only lose 20, I'll only lose 40. Every time. But every time I walked in and I put that first 20 in and that machine stole it, yeah, my addictive nature kicked in. My unwillingness to accept defeat kicked in, and it's a terrible trait to have as a gambler. My unwillingness, yeah, to accept defeat kicked in, and I would spend hours and hours at that machine trying desperately to beat it, to come out on top, yeah, to get my money back. And it rarely happened. It rarely happened. But what did happen was this: I would come out of that machine. I would come out away from the machine. I'd walk out. I'd go and sit in my car. And the feelings of anger at myself for being so weak, for being unable to stop myself, were scary. Then the anger turned to sickness, a sickness and a shame, like I'm not a real man. If I was a proper man, I wouldn't be in this situation. And the shame of having to go home to my family, with them knowing fine well what had happened just by one look at my face. Okay, now I'm the most placid guy you could ever meet. I've never struck anybody in anger in my life, but I promise you, every time I come out of there, having been defeated, having been beaten, I punched the dash of my car till my fingers were practically fractured. Okay, that's what the machines do to you. They change you. That first fix syndrome, as soon as that kicks in, I was no longer myself at that machine. My the people who meant most to me in my life could be ringing me, my phone going off in my pocket, and I used to ignore it because they were disturbing me. The people I love the most in this whole planet, I thought of them as disturbing me when I'm on this mission. It was disgusting. It was horrendous, and when I look back on it, it was absolutely, totally shameful for a man as intelligent as I like to think I am to be trapped that way by a machine. Shocking, absolutely shocking, and so regretting it, and I will regret it for the rest of my life. Okay, but eventually, yeah, despite this machine becoming all consuming, okay, it was so consuming that it didn't just end when I walked out of the bookies. I would lie awake at night thinking every night, night after night, oh, I should have done this. I should have played that. I should have put money on this. If I had have done this, that wouldn't have happened. All night, yeah. And then all the next day through work, there'd be thoughts in my head. I can't wait for work to finish so I can get back. I can win my money back from last night. This time I'm going to do this. This time I'm going to do that. I'm going to learn from my mistakes. I'm going to learn from my mistakes. Are you kidding me? I was making mistake after mistake after mistake. Waking up in the morning and thinking of the machine was a mistake. Thinking of it 24/7 was a mistake. The biggest mistake was ever getting involved in it. Okay? So anyway, I was lucky because eventually I managed to snap out of it. Okay? I weaned myself off it. It cost me. I weaned myself off. I snapped out of it, but not before it cost me. And boy, did it cost me. In the first 6 months, it cost me all my savings. Okay. Then in the following 4.5, 5.5 years, it cost me all my disposable income. All of it. Now, fortunately, there was enough about me for it not to go any further than that in terms of money lost. But other people went a lot further. People lost their houses. People lost their jobs. People lost their savings. People got into massive debt. They lost their families, and quite a few lost their lives, taking their own lives because they couldn't take the debt, they couldn't take the shame, They couldn't take the thought of them being so weak. There's horrible tales out there of what these machines have done to people. I'm so glad that as I was weaning myself off it, even though I'd lost one relationship, I met the love of my life. I met a woman who basically meant enough to me for me not to want to lose her over the machine, which I would have done had I not stopped. And I was already halfway to stopping, but that, sealed the deal for me. And without even realizing this, I will be forever grateful. Okay, so I managed to get out, and once I was out and I stepped away and I looked back, I began to see everything for what it was. I began to see why these machines are described as the crack cocaine of the high street. And it's wrong, it's immoral, it's so obvious. Okay? Also, the anger I showed at myself, the anger I had at myself for being trapped and unable to get out of it, that anger has soon turned from inwards towards these machines, towards the people who put them in the stores, knowing fine well how they are programmed and what they can do, the damage they can do for the profits they can make. Okay, my anger turned towards them. So over the course of the next couple of years, I've spent a lot of time watching these machines, watching other people, watching reactions, watching the damage these machines have done, and basically realized that in all them years, the machines played me. I didn't play the machines, but I have come to certain conclusions. Two main conclusions I've come to. The first one is this, that the machines are indisputably immoral. Okay? And the second, in my opinion, I believe the machines to be illegal. Absolutely 100%, I believe that them machines being in them stores, them bookies, shops, is illegal. And this is what I'm going to point out in my next video. Okay, this is a very important video. I know that the limit's coming down in 5 or 6, 7 months, but it's still enough time for young people or young men to be trapped and to lose fortunes. So of all the videos I make, this is the one I really would like for people to share. Even if it just helped one person, it would make everything I do to be worthwhile. Okay, so until next time, feel free to share, subscribe, and take care of yourselves. Stay the fuck away from the machines. Take care.